Good morning and welcome to CSS. I'm John Alterman, Senior Vice President of Brzezinski Chair in Global Security and Geostrategy and the Director of the Middle East Program. It is my great pleasure to welcome my friend Mick Mulroy, who's the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Near East. It's easy to do Mick's bio because he was a paramilitary officer for CIA for several decades, and that's all we can tell you. He's been in the current job for a couple of years, and he's going to start by talking on the record about Iraq, and then we will go off the record for a discussion. So he will make a statement on the record about Iraq that you can use however you wish to use, and then we'll go off the record for discussion. So it is my pleasure to introduce you to Mick Mulroy.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it. Thanks for everybody being here. As mentioned, we have a on-the-record statement. I'm going to read a shortened version of it, so you don't have to spend all your time hearing me just read. And we have a longer version, if you're interested in that you can use for whatever you'd like and cite this actual event. I thought I'd start with a story, actually, that I just remembered when I was driving over here. I was telling Eric. As you mentioned, I used to be a paramilitary officer. I'm not going to tell you a paramilitary story, but there's one that I thought of because yesterday they dedicated the Mi-17. That was the first team that flew into Afghanistan. And I had a friend, now deceased, who was on one of the teams that flew in early on. So I was there after that, but he was there on the first wave, so to speak. And he said when they were flying in on an Mi-17, the link-up indicator with the group they were supposed to meet with was a bonfire in the shape of a T. And they were flying in, and they saw a bonfire on top of a hill, and they said, well, maybe they just didn't get the message. Kind of looks like a T, I don't know. Let's just sit down here. And then they had like an argument about whether they should stick to the plan or just go ahead and land. I guess sticking to the plan prevailed, and they said, we're not going to go, we're going to just fly back. And then on the way back, they saw a bonfire in the shape of a T and landed. And one of the first things they asked them is that, are you guys on both hilltops? And they said, no. The other hilltop's Taliban. So they were this close to landing. That would have been the shortest military mission in history, probably, as 6 guys jumped out in the middle of a Taliban formation.
That's so good.
Yeah. So I thought you'd appreciate that. Okay. First, let me actually. I
think maybe paramilitary humor and Washington humor may not be the same.
I thought it was funny. That was funny. Because that's whenever we had a choice between sticking to the plan and not sticking to the plan, he would tell that story. I must have heard it 1,000 times. Stick to the plan. All right. The U.S. and Iraq security partnership is building the foundation for a more secure future for both countries. Our relationship with Iraq is grounded in mutual respect, anchored in the strategic framework agreement signed by our two countries more than 10 years ago. The 5,200 military personnel in Iraq are there at the invitation of the government. This relationship is among our most compelling strategic interests in the region. While the territorial caliphate in Syria and Iraq has been defeated, the fight against ISIS is not over. The tragedy that took place in Karbala just 1 week ago, in which ISIS bombed a minibus carrying Iraqi pilgrims, demonstrates their continuing ability to wage terrorist attacks that kill innocent men, women, and children. Our deepest condolences go to the families of the 12 Iraqis killed and those injured in this attack. The international community needs to continue to work together to help Iraq build their security forces to prevent these attacks and keep ISIS from reconstituting its networks. The U.S.-led global coalition to defeat ISIS includes 81 members. The training and assistance mission has yielded many dividends, though much work remains. The Combined Joint Task Force, Operation Inherent Resolve, includes the United States and 15 other nations. It supports Iraq's military through a robust train, equip, and advise mission. Their priority is to empower Iraq's professional and capable security forces to fill the security vacuum that exists in many parts of the country. Ensuring that ISIS does not regain territory in the disputed areas is of utmost importance. The Department of Defense will continue to encourage security coordination between the Iraqi security forces and the Kurdish Peshmerga to bring security and stability in these areas. The Iraqi Constitution also supports timely resolution of areas of concern, including the budget and oil sales. The United States is encouraged by the recent progress in improving relationships between Baghdad and Erbil. The Popular Mobilization Forces, or PMF, are also part of the Iraqi security forces, reporting to the Prime Minister's office, and the members are Iraqis. Over 40 groups are part of the PMF, many of them Shia, but also Sunni, Christian, and Yazidi. Discipline elements of the PMF were instrumental in the territorial defeat of ISIS, and we recognize the critical role they played in the fight. However, some elements are Iranian-backed. They operate semi-autonomously, are destabilizing the liberated areas, and prioritize extortion for personal gain over fighting ISIS. We support the government of Iraq's efforts to bring all armed groups under full state control through the Prime Minister's Executive Order 227. This is an important step towards ensuring Iraq's future as a strong, sovereign, unified, democratic, and prosperous state. However, implementation of the decree will be key, and we will continue to engage the government of Iraq on the need to enforce this executive order. Iraq also requires significant economic and humanitarian assistance to address the underlying conditions that gave ISIS fertile ground to recruit and spread its hateful ideology. Addressing the root cause of ISIS's emergence requires a unified effort that harnesses diplomatic and developmental expertise from across the international community. In Iraq, there are approximately 1.8 million internally displaced persons and 6.7 million people in need of humanitarian assistance. A lack of security on the ground, a collapse of social cohesion and livelihoods, and destroyed or damaged housing hampers the abilities of many families to return home. If this issue is not addressed by the Iraqi government and the international community, this population will be susceptible to radicalization and extremism. The best way to honor coalition and Iraqi sacrifices is by preserving an enduring partnership that invests in Iraq's long-term security and stabilization. U.S. security assistance does this now. Our by, with, and through approach continues to benefit both countries with a relatively limited U.S. presence. Only with this long-term security partnership can we defeat and prevent the reemergence of terrorists that threaten Iraq, the region, and the world.